Hey, what's going on, guys? Robert Simmons here from Robert Simmons Paying It Forward. That's the name of my YouTube channel. I'm a retired NYPD Highway Patrol motorcycle lieutenant. And I'm out here today because I'm doing a private lesson for someone. But before they get here, I figured I'd talk to you guys about something. So, yes, I offer private lessons. I'm out here in Pooler, Georgia. And if you're interested in any private lessons, you can go to my website and you can get further information on that. So when people come out here for a private lesson with me, whether it's one-on-one or a couple or a group, what I go over really depends on what they need. And everybody's different. Right? Sometimes people need something that they didn't even know they needed. All right, and there's a few things that we go over. It's never anything, really elaborate like this. Nobody's coming out here to learn how to do an 18-foot U-turn, or maybe some people are, but you have to start here before you can get there, right? So one of the things I want to go over with you guys is something that I think is as simplistic as it may seem. It's beneficial and it's important. And I call them starts and stops. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, I do practice sessions out here as well. And I have 9 exercises that we do. They all build on one another. And then a bonus exercise. And again, the goal out here is never, ever to make anybody ride like me, ride like motor officers, ride like competitive riders. No, the goal is just to raise your confidence so that you feel comfortable making right turns, left turns, and U-turns. And really, I haven't been saying this lately, but I'm going to start saying it, so that you feel comfortable in the speed range that most motorcycle riders don't feel comfortable. And that's between 1 and 10 miles per hour. Okay, that's where you need to be the boss of your motorcycle. So if you're familiar with my channel, you know exercise number 1 is starting and stopping. But in that exercise, I have you ride up to me, get up to about 2nd gear, and then downshift, brake with your front brake, and before you stop, you should be off of that front brake, rear brake only, okay? But what I'm talking about today, a little different. Okay, I'm gonna talk to you about why. All right, guys, so you can see I got a line of cones going down this parking lot. No, this is not a single serpentine. I actually have that set up over here. But what this is what I use to do starts and stops. So this is important, guys, because exercise number 4 on my practice course is right turns and left turns from a stop. By far the most difficult exercise out here for people. That's what I find. And I find it's most difficult because it requires you to be in that speed range that I told you most people are not comfortable with, between 1 and 10 miles per hour, right? But at the same time, you have to make a turn. So if you're not comfortable doing that from a stop already, forget about the turn part. If just starting out and going slow is uncomfortable for you, that's where this exercise comes in. So now these cones that I have set up, there's no particular length that they're spread apart. Right now, the length of this lane is 20 feet. So these 2 cones are about 20 feet apart. But this cone and that cone are not, because that's where the next parking spot bay starts. So the distance is not important. The amount of cones are not important. You don't even need to use cones. But the purpose of this exercise is I want you guys to put your front wheel at the first cone if you're using cones, and go through the steps that we always go through. What's always step number 1? Make sure your motorcycle's in first gear. All right, we'll cover the rear brake. That's number 2. Step number 3 is preload and keep it loaded. You have to do that. Keep it loaded. That's what's important. Because a lot of times when we do exercise number 1 and people come out here, they preload the throttle, and then when they slowly release the clutch into the friction zone and start moving, I hear their engine going gluck, 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 gluck. If you hear your engine going gluck, 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 instead of it just being a steady, your throttle is too low. Okay, and like I always say, we play how we practice. So that might not be a big deal as you're taking off going straight with your handlebar straight. But if you're taking off with your handlebars turned, or if you're in a lean on a U-turn, if you're not in the habit of listening to that throttle and making sure it's high enough and it's too low, that's where you can run into problems. So that's why we want to practice the same way all the time. That's how you build muscle memory, okay? Preload, keep it loaded, slowly release the clutch into the friction zone. And as soon as your motorcycle starts to move, as soon, you pick up that left foot. Nice and easy. Now remember, we don't need speed, we just need power. That's the misconception. People want to introduce speed because speed makes us feel better, because once speed is introduced, you no longer have to be the boss. The motorcycle kind of takes over a little bit. But all you need is a little bit of power. The motorcycle wants to stand up with that power. And remember, you're covering the rear brake, and you can apply the rear brake at the same time as you're taking off. Like, as you're taking off, be on that rear brake. I'm not talking about you're taking off from a red light, it turns green and nothing's in front of you. That's different. No need for you to be on the rear brake. But you're taking off and knowing that you're taking off to go slow. And you don't want to be out of control. The rear brake gives you control. So use that rear brake. Remember, we don't need a lot, a little. Everything we do is subtle. That's going to help you control that motorcycle at slow speeds. It's going to make the motorcycle stand up because you're providing power to the rear wheel. You're in the friction zone, remember. We're not out of the friction zone on the rear brake. You're in the friction zone with the rear brake. You're using those two things together. And like I said before, the more you practice this, the more you're going to know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. That's when you're the boss of the motorcycle. Okay? So if while you're doing it, you'll know when you need to open the clutch a little bit to give yourself a little bit more power, and apply rear brake if you're giving yourself a little bit too much power. Okay? And all I want you to do is, I want you to start at a cone, come up to the next cone, stop. And every time you do that, I'm glad I brought that up too, because yes, I told you the distance is not important. However, at the same time it is. What I mean is it doesn't have to be exact, but I don't want the distance to be too far too. Because the point is, I don't want you to get your motorcycle up to a speed where momentum can kind of help you out and you can let the motorcycle take over. I need you guys to be in control of your motorcycles at all times, at slow speeds. All right, clearly at high speeds too, but right now I'm talking about slow speeds. I need you to be in control at all times. So, and I tell people all the time when we practice out here, you know, if you're waiting to do an exercise and the one person goes and now it's your turn, no, we're not going to do this. You're not walking the motorcycle to the next exercise. It's not going to happen, right? So that's what this is pretty much replicating. From here to there, same steps all the time. Make sure the motorcycle's in first gear. Cover the rear brake. Preload and keep it loaded. Clutch right before the sweet spot. And then you're going to slowly release the clutch into the friction zone. As soon as that motorcycle starts to move, you're going to pick up your left foot. Again, you're still on that rear brake, so you're in control. All right. And again, the answer to uh-oh is always provide power to the rear wheel. So when you pick up your foot, if the motorcycle starts to move and in that little second you feel it unsteady, just open up the clutch a little bit. Remember, with power, your motorcycle wants to stand up and it wants to go straight. It wants to stand up. So if you feel like it's going to fall, power. It's going to, trust me, it's going to stand up. All right, let me show you what it should look like. Stop. Make sure I'm in first gear. Cover the rear brake. Preload, keep it loaded. Slowly release the clutch into the friction zone. As soon as it starts to move, I'm going to pick up my foot. Rear brake, rear brake. Stop. Do it again. Head and eyes straight ahead. Head and eyes straight ahead. No reason to look down at the dashboard. Notice how I'm stopping. Every time I stop, listen to my throttle. Did you hear my throttle? You heard my throttle until my motorcycle stopped. Why is that? Because I'm keeping power going to the rear wheel until I stop. 70% rear brake, 30% power. That's going to ensure my motorcycle is straight up, even at those slow speeds, and I can come to a smooth stop. I'm controlled. If I have my clutch pulled all the way in and I try to come to a stop going that slow, the motorcycle is going to be unsteady. Every now and then it'll work out because balance might just work out, but not all the time. And when you feel that uh-oh, that's what you need to do. Friction zone. Listen to my throttle. Right? You hear it the whole time. Now I'm gonna do it without doing that. Sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. Meaning I'm gonna pull up to this next cone and pull the clutch all the way in and let it coast to it. See, already I feel it. Every other time you saw me stop, my handlebars were pretty straight. They might have moved a little bit, but without power to the rear wheel, you saw this. Because already the motorcycle is not steady. All right, guys. So listen, I hope that helps you out. It's a very simple exercise to practice. Believe it or not, something this simplistic, starting and stopping your motorcycle, is going to help you with other stuff because it's forcing you to be in control. It's forcing you to be the boss of your motorcycle. And if you struggle with this, when you get to stuff like exercise number 4, where now you have to introduce a turn, it's going to seem so much more difficult and so much more intimidating. But I'm here to tell you it's not, okay? All right, guys, practice, 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 guys. This is just a short one I wanted to give to you guys. All right, if you like this video, please like, subscribe, share to my channel, YouTube, Robert Simmons Paying It Forward, and hit that notification bell if you'd like to be notified of future videos that I have coming out. All right, guys, until next time.